This is an instructional video to help you with project part 2. So right here I have my birth weight reduced.csv. So I didn't save it as an Excel file, but it opened just fine. If you want, you can then go into File and save as an Excel file, and it'll get rid of this .csv. At the end, I also kind of embedded the instructions so I don't forget what I'm doing. And I've also included the table from our part 1 so that we can finish the bar graph. So let's start from the beginning. I mean, the standard deviation and the 5-number summary, all of these are functions that can be found in Excel. So let's start with the mean. The function is called average. So when you start typing average, it'll just pop up. Now if I scroll back up, the birth weight is my column D. I can just kind of click on that and close my parenthesis, and that'll get me to the mean of the birth weight. The standard deviation, this is a sample standard deviation. So the function always starts with an equal sign, and I am using Microsoft 365, the one that I recommended using, in case you're wondering what addition I have. So the standard deviation, if you start typing standard dev, you want to choose the standard deviation .s. That gives us the function for the standard deviation of a sample, which is slightly different than the one for the population. Again, I remember I'm working with the column D, so I can just click on the D, close the parenthesis, and that does that. In order to include the 5-number summary, I really have to do it one at a time. So the min function is a min. Double click on that. Go to D, close the parenthesis. The function for the Q1, so the first quartile, that one's a little bit different. So as soon as I start typing in Q, I'll have my quartiles. The function that is closely resembling TI-84 is called quartile.exe. But as we have seen before, depending on the device that you're using in order to do your calculations, you might be off in some digits. So this would be one of those scenarios where if you would get a slightly different answer from Excel than you do from the calculator, or doing this by hand. So I wouldn't worry about this too much as far as the tests are concerned, but Connect Math will pick on you. So be careful and let me know if you have any questions. So when you're using a quartile function, you want to tell where your data is, so that's RD, and then it wants the quartiles. So if I push in 1 or type in 1, that's going to give me the value for the first quartile. And let me do it again for the third quartile because it's the same function. So quartile.exe, column D, comma 3. So third quartile. Now you can actually use the same function for your median, but the median has its own function. It's called median. So double click on that, column D, close the parenthesis, we're done with that. And last one is max. So the max can be found by the function max, and click D, close the parenthesis, and this is called one variable statistic. In order to check my data for the outliers, I really need the Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR, and I need Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR to check my data for outliers. Your Excel can actually do that for you. You'll start the cell with an equal sign, but if you want the Excel to work as your calculator, there you go. So you'll go Q1 minus 1.5 times, and then IQR, well, I don't have my calculator with me right now, so I'll go open parenthesis, Q3 minus Q1, because Excel is a calculator in a sense, and push enter, so it actually does it for you. And do it again for Q3 plus 1.5 times, and then the difference between Q3 and Q1. Close this parenthesis. So if you leave these two as is, that's not the answer for the outliers. You want to check if there's any babies that are below 3.8, and you want to check any babies for that are greater than 10.625. There's actually a function to do that as well. It's called COUNTIF. So if you start typing in COUNTIF is what you want. Again, our range is D, but then what it is that you want to count goes inside a quotation marks. So you can open your quotations and say, I want anything that's less than 3.825, and close the notation and click enter, and apparently there's no babies that are this small. That's nice. And I'll do this again. COUNTIF, and then you click on range, and I'll check for the really big babies, so greater than 10.625. I don't think we have any of those either. And there's nothing. So this data does not contain any outliers, but you would include this type of work in your analysis. All right, moving on. Constructing a histogram. And what we need is we need at least 5 classes. We'll highlight column D. I'll go under the insert menu. And what you want is you want this little icon right here, and that is your histogram. Right away, it's going to give you a chart that has the histogram. You can go up to a title. You can kind of erase that and call it histogram. And right now it has 5 classes. If you click on this, no, not this. If you double click on the any of the columns, under options, you can choose horizontal axis, and this is where you can choose how many classes you have. Right now it uses 5 classes, so if I'll click on number of bins, I can always change it to some other number. I'm pushing enter, or 9 to make even more classes. It's up to you how many classes you want, but make it look nice. I kind of like that 7, to tell you the truth. It's more than 5, but still has really nice symmetry. So it's really nice to have that symmetry, and we'll see this again in the next sections. So we'll talk about the distribution. Notice it does look approximately symmetric, so this is a good thing that we can use for the rest of the semester. If I go down and look at the last problem, which is constructing a bar graph, my table is right at the far left, or right here on the left. So all I really need to do is highlight the whole two-way table, go under insert, and you want this guy. So this is going to be your bar graph. If I'll just click on that first 2D, what's going to happen is you have a chart that has the 2 bars for the low versus the normal weight, and smokers versus not smokers in color, which is perfectly fine. If you want to play around with it, that's great. If you want to change some colors, that's up to you. You do want to change the title though to say that this is your bar graph. Everything else is pretty labeled. And on the far right here, you have some, if you click on this plus sign, you have some choices of what else to add. This is a filter. I don't know if you need this, but this is your chart style where, basically changes some colors, makes it a little bit different than your standard. Other than that, you are done with this project, except you don't want to turn it in like this because this is going to look ugly. So what you need to do is use this as a calculator, but be able to transfer over to maybe a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document where you would write out, okay, so I have the mean, the standard deviation, I have my one variable statistics, here's my one variable statistics. Next slide. There's my work for the outliers. I found the lower bound, I found the upper bound, and we found no information about that. Then you have your next slide that talks about your histogram, and then you have a next slide that talks about a bar graph. Do not turn in the original Excel file. I'm not gonna like it. Other than that, I hope to see you in class next time.